be seated. Good morning. Merry Christmas. Thank you, Pastor Charles, for the honor of asking me to preach on this special day. It's great to have my mom here to say it. Mom, right? I so loved our beautiful Christmas Eve service last night. Was that amazing? Wonderful to be home for Christmas. So, will you pray with me? God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Today in the Gospel lesson, we hear the famous prologue to John. No nativity story, only this mystical poem and hymn of the Incarnation. It crescendos until the punchline, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. This mystery that God was in Christ in order to reconcile the world is central to our faith. Sometimes when we were kids, adults or religious would say something was a mystery when they didn't want to be bothered or didn't know the answer or didn't think we could handle it. But some things really are inexhaustible mysteries. Paula asked me this week, she said, so after 44 years of preaching, is there anything left to say about Christmas? She said. The amazing thing, for which I am grateful this morning, is that Christmas is an inexhaustible mystery. God's nature, love, the Word, is not static. It's not far away, but it's dynamic, mysterious, creative, loving, near, yearning to connect to us. I love Madeline L'Engle's A Sky Full of Children, that was read this morning, in which she begs us not to try to explain the mystery of the Incarnation to her. One writer has said, my only rule is, if I understand something, it's no mystery. One of the great old hymns, the Songs of Christmas, is the Magnum Mysterium. It says, O great mystery and wonderful sacrament, that animals should see the newborn Lord lying in a manger. The birth of Jesus is a sacrament that is a mystery to its core. God with us, a vulnerable baby. When I was a young pastor in Detroit, in my first year, 40 years ago, a young woman came to the church. We had a lot of young people in the church then, and she was 17, pregnant, not married, and she decided she wanted to have this baby. And so the church kind of surrounded her with love and joy, and it came time for her to have her baby, and she asked me to come and be there. She was having birth at home, and with a midwife, and all the things that you did in the 70s and whatever, so I got there, and the midwife wasn't there. And she never got there. And so a few of us, including me, church, were with her, and it was her first child, and what I knew about first children is sometimes it can take a long time, but this took no time at all. As we were with her, suddenly, there was the head, the one shoulder, the second shoulder, and I caught Rachel Elizabeth in my hands that morning. My mouth was open for 24 hours. Someone helped suction her, and she cried, a very strong cry, and with some beautiful shape. But I will never forget the shock, surprise, and the mystery of what is a very, very common event happening every minute on this planet. But there in that moment, catching that baby was an amazing miracle and a mystery to earth. That baby is 40 years old today. I hope she has a happy life. I don't know where she is, but I think of her today. She could never imagine being preached about, I'm sure. In our times, in an information age where you can Google anything, mystery is sometimes reduced to what is real news and what is fake news in our day. There are the small, mundane mysteries, aren't there? Like, where did the socks go that were in the dryers? There are mysteries that get solved at the end of a novel or a play or over time as the truth comes out. But there are also the big why questions that seem to have no permanent or satisfactory answer. I think we need unsolvable mysteries. We do not need to understand everything or have everything neatly explained all the time. Mystery gives an unfinished character to the universe, a universe that is still being created, that we have not exhausted, and there is more to know and explore. Some things get ruined in the explanation. I love that old blurry photo of the Loch Ness Monster. And learning that it was a hoax did not bring me joy. I love the fantasy that deep in Loch Ness, Scotland, one of those lakes that's so deep we don't know how deep it is, exists a creature from another millennium that might surface and scare us and shock us at any moment. Or, of course, I had to bring up birds. The ivory-billed woodpecker, eh? The Lord Dog bird. It was the largest woodpecker, had a white bill. They thought it was extinct, and then they found a pair in Louisiana, they thought. But no, it was disproven. But true birders who know that one of the last sightings was in Cuba in the 1950s now have a hope that we might find a nesting pair in the mountains there yet. We don't want to give up on that mystery. Every human being needs time and space to appreciate mystery, to be seduced by mystery, by wonder and awe, to feel like a child contemplating the mystery of an unopened gift or the limits of the Milky Way. Our worship every Sunday is a bow, just a little bow, before the mystery of the holy. I do think it's one of the reasons we come to church, to be lifted out of the ordinary into the mystery, to focus on something greater than ourselves, greater than our problems, our fears, or disappointments. And without mystery, there's no romance. There's no falling in love. We fall in love and we want to know, don't we, more and more about that person that we don't know. Of course, true and long-lasting love means that there's always still got to be some mystery to that person who is other, who we still want to know more deeply. We love the Christmas story because it contains a lot of mysteries, stars and angels, the mystery of birth itself, of evil, of mysterious strangers. Where do they all really come from? Unexpected gifts. In some Christian legends, the animals speak or pray at the manger. Mystery that is true mystery is more about our limits as human beings, and what it means to be and live in a universe that is not 100% explainable, but fraught with contradictions. I think mystery has several key roles in our spiritual lives. First, there's the mystery of oneness, the appreciation of the experience that we have now and then, that we are one with the universe, with every creature, even life itself, seas and mountains, one with the beauty and fragility of life. The poet Leonard Nathan, also a birdwatcher, has a whole book in which he tries to describe the experience of what it's like when you've been up at 4 in the morning, spent hours in bad weather with a group of fanatics like you, trying to find a rare bird and actually see it. And he talks about the moment beforehand where you feel annoyed with yourself, because why would you do such a silly thing and be up at this hour and doing this? And then how that switches the instant the bird is sighted, and the group you're with is as one, and focus on the beauty and the unrepeatable moment of seeing this amazing bird. And he spends the whole book trying to find the right word to describe. Is it an epiphany? What is it? And his wife finally says, Leonard, you're never going to find the word to describe this experience. And he said, finally, I felt comforted. I felt comforted that there really aren't words to describe the experience of oneness. Humans become one when we focus on a global tragedy or joy. 39 miners emerging in an unlikely day out of the mine in Chile, or an Olympic achievement, or great tragedy in Paris or Berlin, or Pulse in Orlando earlier this year. We yearn to overcome our isolation, our separateness. We yearn at that moment to be one. There's something in human beings that we long to be one with each other, with life, with our fragile planet, with God, that we long for peace and love to reign. This is how we're made in the image of God. That like God, we yearn to be connected, to be one. And God is with us in that baby in the manger, because all of us were that baby. All of us were vulnerable. Any of us could have been that baby who was born today in some refugee camp. Why, seeing that toddler dead on the shore of freedom and hope earlier this year was so painfully captivating, because we mourn for the life that died so unnecessarily. That could have been our life, or the life of someone we know. That mystery of yearning for goodness is what drives us to change the world, even when it seems hopeless. Another function of mystery is to help us transcend, in the moment, a present conflict, hate, disappointment, betrayal, something we cannot change. There's a great story in World War I called the Christmas Truce. Maybe some of you have heard it. That soldiers, 100 years ago, in World War I think it was American and German soldiers, who fought hand-to-hand combat across the trenches. And the generals and the higher-ups and the people who ran the war, who really knew what the war was about, which these guys on the front line really didn't. There they were, and finally stopped for 24 hours, and it was Christmas, and they were bored in their trenches. And suddenly, one on the other side heard the other singing a familiar Christmas carol. Unfamiliar words, but the same tune. And someone lit a cigarette, and then someone walked out of the trench and across, and they began sharing some Christmas treats from home. I understand they even tried to play a game of cards. Well, somewhere far away, some generals heard this was happening. This was more dangerous than the war itself. That people across lines might transcend that moment of war, might set aside their hatred of each other. This was not acceptable. So word came back to these soldiers that they had to cease immediately. Reluctantly they did. But those guys had to be wondering, what is all this fighting for? Those guys seemed just like us. The generals knew that it's possible to transcend great conflict, pain, and hatred, suffering, and disappointment. It's possible to forgive beyond all reason. There are some things, realities we can do nothing about right now. We cannot change. But we can transcend their power to defeat us. Oh, great mystery. There's a power greater than ourselves that can transcend and even heal our troubles and sorrows. That is a great mystery. The great mystery of our faith. We're invited to know that mystery in Jesus, fully human and fully divine. Like us, Jesus was at home and homeless, through friendships and betrayal, rest and work, love and hate, injustice and victory. He was tempted as we are. Mystery allows us to find a place of safety and hope in the midst of all of life's challenges, in the God with us and in Jesus, the friend of sinners. Finally, the mystery humbles us with gratitude. It's good to be alive, to be human, to be who we are, to be where we are in this place. And it's okay not to know everything, including the future. I had a friend named Gary. He was a doctor, a scientist, very self-sufficient, rational, efficient. He contracted AIDS, and he got very efficient and rational and self-sufficient about dealing with AIDS. His brother came to take care of him, and he had a purpose of, Gary, even when he wasn't feeling well, to go to church just to drag his brother Mike along, because they grew up in a very fundamentalist church, and he wanted Mike to heal from his religious pain, which he did. And Gary had a plan that when he had too much suffering, when it got too messy or too ugly, as dying and death often does, that he would take his own life efficiently, lay it aside, be done with it, no fuss. I visited him a lot in those days and months. And I remember the day that I visited him. He was too sick to get up out of bed. And he looked at me and said, well, all my plans haven't come to fruition. He said, when it came right down to it, I couldn't surrender the mystery of each day. He said, even on painful days, I was glad to wake up. And he said, I just couldn't do it. I can still see the smile as he said that. Today, as we sing familiar carols and take joy in seeing family or friends or in serving our neighbor, as we take a moment to breathe in the great mystery that's our gift today, the mystery that we are one, that we can transcend any problem, and that we are humbled and grateful to a good God who is with us now and for all eternity. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.